Alright guys, welcome back. We have our second to last video. In this video, we're going to be talking about all of our artifacts, colorless lands, and modal cards. The reason we did modal cards here instead of with the multicolors is just because the multicolor section has the most cards. Multicolor has like almost 3 colors worth of cards. So we decided to stick them here at the end of this video, which will lead very nicely into the next one for the multicolor cards. So let's go ahead and kick it off with our colorless. We have an environmental science. Okay, sorry, I thought something was off on my overlay here. Search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Whoa. Colorless color fixing?
Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of taking the place of the artifacts you sometimes see as color fixers.
Love it. This will be great for any learn spell in any deck.
Yeah, so we'll see most of these colorless cards. The non-artifact colorless cards are lessons, so it'll make it a little easier to get the requisite quantity you want to match up with your orange spells. But yeah, this is low impact, but it fixes, gains life, which helps Wither Bloom. It's a card I'm happy just stick in my sideboard and get with a orange spell.
Absolutely.
I think it's still like right around a 2 though.
Yeah, I think it's, I put it like slightly higher. I think it's of unlike a lot of the lessons we've seen so far in the other colors, it did seem like they would only be useful in like a specific deck, whereas like this feels great to get at any point in any deck because it's ramping, it's thinning, it's fixing. Like there's no downside to ever casting the spell. So I had it a little higher. I kind of want this in any deck.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's more consistent than some of the other lessons, but lower impact.
I agree with that. Very low impact. Expanded Anatomy. Lesson 3 mana. Put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. It gains vigilance.
Yeah.
It's got a permanent lasting ability, which I like.
Yeah. Card I would never put in my main deck, but perfectly fine to grab for free.
Yep. Yeah, this really honestly, like I do rate these similarly to the more poopy modal lands, where they are gonna take you, they're gonna surprise you how much, even though they're not very good, they will surprise you by how much value they will get because they are free.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. It's kind of expensive and it's card disadvantage, but like, I mean, it gets rid of big bombs permanently.
Yeah, and it's not really card disadvantage if you get it for free.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. That makes sense.
Yeah, 5 mana to exile anything isn't really much, at colorless as opposed to like 4 mana in black. Is probably about, comparable cost. This one I actually like a lot because it's a powerful effect.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, I honestly didn't even like register that it was a lesson. So I was just like, this seems a little off for like what I would want to run in my deck for removal, but you're right, it's free, so it's not like card disadvantage in any way.
Yeah. I've got this one a little higher than the last couple. I got 2/5. Again, you've got to have the learn cards to get it, but
yeah, I think I value the lessons in learn a little higher than I did when we started, just because it does seem like there is a fair amount of just random cards that have learn.
Yeah.
So they're not all premium, but it feels like it's enough to get there, that having a few lessons in every board will be good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is the art I tried to use for the thumbnail for this section, but couldn't find it. Introduction. Let's see. Scry 2 and draw a card for 3 mana colorless. Scry 2 is not bad. That kind of, I think Scry 2 kind of makes up for draw an extra card for 3.
Yeah, I mean, we get this effect for a single blue mana, but it's banned in Modern, so in preordain. But yeah, colorless and get it for free. Sure, I'm in.
Or you can look at it as like colorless divination, right? Because like on average late game, if you divination, you're getting like a land and a spell, so you just kind of mitigate that a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I think
for any color. So obviously I think divination's a bit better because you actually get to keep the land, but
yeah. Yeah, I think this is in that 2-5 range, maybe.
yeah, this lesson's definitely better. These colorless lessons seem to be stronger than the colored lessons in general.
Yep.
A mythic lesson, create a 2/1 white and black inkling creature with flying, a 3/2 spirit, and a 4/4 blue fractal. Or, I'm sorry, elemental. Create everybody's stuff.
Yeah, except for the green ones. So no pest and no fractal. I wonder, I'm guessing there might be some sort of story-based reason for that.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
expensive.
I was gonna say maybe like maybe the storyline part of it's like they're not like little teeny inklings aren't really like a mascot, whereas like a 4/4 elemental is. But I don't know if I meant pests, little 1/1 pests. But I also think an inkling probably wouldn't count for that either. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's expensive, but that's fine if it's sitting in your sideboard. You can just not get it until you can cast it.
Yeah, you get a bunch of other things that ramp you and do stuff for free, and it seems like it'll be a ton of value.
Yeah, you get 9 power, 7 toughness over 3 bodies, couple of it with flying. Yeah, I think this card's really good, actually. This one, I'd have higher than any of these other colorless ones, which makes sense because it's a mythic.
I agree with that, but how high?
I'm gonna probably take this fairly early. I'll probably take this at like 3-5, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I was on the fence between 3 and 3/5.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
little too expensive to be a 4, I think. And you have to have it. Maybe it goes up if you have good learn spells that pull their own weight, but if you end up having to run spells that are weaker to compensate to get this, then I think it loses a bit of its value.
Agreed.
Great. Moving on to the artifacts. We have a gargoyle 2/1 for 4 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. Hey, that seems pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a 4-mana 2/1 like top deck tutor sort of. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this card.
I actually don't hate it. It's an evasive creature. I mean, granted, it's slightly overpowered, but it lets you just get your best like removal spell back. I mean, granted, it's not card advantage because you still have to draw it, but I mean, that's going to be better than any blank most of the time. And it's got a little evasive body with it.
Yeah, you have to have a few good things to get back with this in your deck before you want to play it.
It feels a lot, well, I guess it's a little. So there's like the 5-mana spell, right? That like the Merfolk 2/2 that lets you put it back into your hand, but it was like a worse body and it costs more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know.
And that was double blue.
I think that card was much better just because it was card advantage. I agree. It cost more. It was a 2/2 ground creature instead of a flyer. And it was blue, not colorless. So there are definitely advantages this card has, but
And double blue pips. I mean, I'm not saying that they're equal. Like, I liked that card a lot, but I think this is in the same wheelhouse of playability.
Yeah, it's not unplayable. I don't think it's particularly good. I think it goes up in something like blue-red.
Yeah, I think it's like blue-red or black with premium removal spells. Cards that you want to draw more than once. Yeah. Like if you're just playing like, you know, the green combat trick deck, we're not playing this. So it's gotta be in something that has instants and sorceries of a high quality or value. But if that's the case, I really actually like it.
Yeah. So what do you give it then?
I think it's like a 3.
Yeah, you are definitely higher. I'm maybe 2.5. I'm actually leaning closer to 2, but I think it's probably a 5 for me.
All right. That's, you know, there's only been like 3 cards we've really been like even like a point across.
Yeah.
You know, apart. I mean, so that's not surprising, but it's good to see we have a little bit of differences. All right, we got a guide, a 2-1 for 2. Enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, reveal it. Put that card on top. It doesn't give the card advantage. It's kind of a small body on its own. So I'm not loving this normally, but if it lets me get a fixing color, then I'm pretty happy. Like, this just counts as a splash source, right?
Yes, this is funny. I actually like this card a lot more than the last one. For the splash reasons, it's a reasonably priced body. Like, 2-1 for 2 you're not happy with, but you play those sometimes anyway. And it never whiffs. Whereas the other one can.
I mean, but it whiffs in the fact that you might not want it.
Well, then you just decline. Like, you just decline to do it, and you have a 2-mana 2-1, which is not overpriced anyway.
So late game, when you don't want the land, you just top deck a 2-mana 2-1. I'd rather top deck a 2-1 flyer for 4 because it's later in the game.
Well, I'd always rather top deck a bigger spell later in the game.
Yeah, and it's just 4 mana. It's not like it's like a huge. Now I like this spell better in any deck that has a splash color. I like free sources of my splash, but if I'm just straight 2 colors, I'd rather have the opportunity to get a spell back.
Yeah, I don't know. I value the efficiency on 2 for 2, 2-1 for 2 rather than 4. I guess flying is relevant, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I guess I also just maybe I'm overvaluing the quality of the cards I'm getting back too.
Yeah. But anyway, I actually have it at the same grade as the last one. I just like this card better.
Okay. Well, so that's close. I'm at like a 2-5 on this. I wasn't saying I disliked this by any means. So it sounds like I'm just a little over on the other, but about on par for this.
Yeah.
Great. This one has a lot of text.
Cody, Vociferous Codex. This is also the pet you can get on Arena. With one of them pre-orders. It's a 3-mana 1/4 legendary construct. You can't cast permanent spells. Okay. Pay 4 mana, tap it, add white, blue, black, red, green. When you cast your next spell this turn, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile an instant or sorcery card with lesser mana value. Till end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put everything else on the bottom in a random order.
So not playable?
No, this is completely unplayable.
Great. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. Moving on.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about those last 2 commons, so I'll take the free win when we can get it. 4/5 reach for 6. Pay 2, put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. I don't hate it.
No. Can have some impact in Lorehold with having cards leave your library.
Yeah, I was also thinking like in Quandrix, if you have like you're shuffling your library when you get to ramp out cards. So later in the game you just have like a really high quantity of like usable spells and creatures.
Yeah.
Because you're putting them back in and then they are shuffled because you searched for land. You also have a lower amount of lands in your deck than you typically would, so you just have a really nice land to spell ratio mid to late game. It's still a bit expensive, but it is a 4/5 reach for colorless mana, which seems pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's a little overpriced, but I'm hoping, I guess, I would hope to have better options at 6 mana, but it's colorless, so it'll fit anywhere.
Yeah. This is a dirtily top end if you don't have any other. Like, I see this a lot. Like, there was a 5/5, like, big elk-looking deer thing in colorless? I tend to run those sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like a 2. Could be a 2/5 if you have the right synergy.
I agree. Sideboard for the reach is nice, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Defender. Pay 1, mill a card. Boop.
Yeah. Playing it.
I can't mill my opponent either.
Yep.
Does not say target player.
Yep.
Letter of Acceptance. 3 mana, tap, add any color. Pay 2, sacrifice, draw a card. I actually like these because they replace themselves.
Yeah. Ramp fixing, not completely dead in the late game because it expensively cycles.
I'm really greedy with my card value. Like, I tend to not run, like, I didn't really run the snow ring in the last set, like, hardly at all.
Yeah.
Much less than I think it deserves. Because I want all of my cards to have an impact on the board, and I don't want things that ramp, unless I have a really, really good reason to need or want it for something very powerful. I tend to would rather wait a turn, but that's not always correct. Cards like this, there was a cycle of medallions or something where you would crack them and draw to replace themselves, and that feels way better to me. I'm actually much happier with this.
Yeah, I agree. This card's pretty good.
What do you think score-wise?
I'd give it like a 2-5.
All right, I like it at 2-5 as well. It's probably more closer to a split rating if you're not splashing. If you're, in the Lorehold, more aggressive decks, Inkling decks, you're not going to want ramp or anything. Like, you don't want to spend any mana to deal with this card. But
agreed.
Splashing, Quandrix, Prismati, you're loving this card.
Yep.
Reflective Golem. It is a 3 mana 2/3. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets this, you may pay 2. If you do, copy and choose new targets. Okay, so it's like a pump spell magnet kind of.
Yeah, it basically doubles your pump spells.
Thank you, Jinx. We saw something like this in Is It a couple of sets ago, but you didn't have to pay, I don't think, to copy it. It just did it automatically.
Yeah. It'll let you trigger your Magecraft a second time.
It feels like a vanilla creature that wants you to play slightly bad cards on it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this card. It's playable. If I have a ton of Magecraft, then maybe I could see, but you still have to also have the pump spells that work with this.
Yeah, it doesn't just double your Magecraft unless your spells suck.
Yeah, it's nice with cards that I'm going to try to skim through and see what we have. It's nice with effects that draw a card.
Or counters. This maybe would be a little bit better in the tokens deck. Or not tokens, but the counter deck. Right, target creature gets +2/+2 2 +1/+1 counters and lifelink till end of turn. Copy it onto something else.
Yeah, that would be better.
Because you're running slightly weaker targeting spells because you're getting synergy from other areas, and then this just lets you copy them. So I do like that in that deck.
Yeah, and if there's any of those effects with learn, you can double learn.
That's true. You trample, learn, or whatever.
Yeah, the trample draw one or the trample learn one. Yeah, but that means you're playing pretty bad cards to begin with. So, there's some scenarios where this deck card is fine, but pretty bad, I think.
Great, it's a 2 because vanilla 2 3s for 2 or 2s.
Yep.
Magecraft. This is a satchel. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a book counter, remove a book counter, add a colorless, remove 3 book counters, draw a card. Okay, so for every 3 spells you cast, you get to draw a card. You pay 3 to draw a card.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No. I could see some Prismari decks wanting this just for the ramp almost, but it still can only ramp for 1 a turn, so probably not. So yeah, never mind. No, yeah, it's just.
If you have a lot of spells, the thing that comes to mind is the one that the mage medallion that every time you cast a wizard, you could get a counter and then you remove all the counters to deal that much damage. But that's just way better. Killing things is way better than drawing a blank.
Yeah.
And you could do it, you know, you can kill an X1, you can kill a 2-1, you can kill, you know, you had a little bit more flexibility. This just feels way worse than that.
Well, but that card, in the right deck, that card could trigger off of every other non-land in your deck.
Yeah, agreed.
The triggered off your creatures if they were wizards.
So, I mean, I'll put this at a 1/5 just because if you do have a spells deck, and you can presumably see getting a lot of triggers out of this, then... And you're short on playables? Yeah. A lot of ifs, but...
And the problem is you have to cast 6 spells before you're actually ahead of this card.
Yes.
After 3 spells and 5 mana, all you've done is replace itself.
Agreed. It is bad.
Alright. Strixhaven Stadium, which probably should be a land, but isn't. 3 mana artifact. Tap to add a colorless. Put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on this. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all and that player loses the game. So this is like an achievement meme card. Not actually a playable card.
If it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them, and that player loses the game. Why does it say that player?
Because it's the whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, so you can only do it if the 10th counter is from a creature dealing damage to them.
Okay, and then it just triggers immediately.
Yes.
Got it. So it's like poison damage.
Yes, except they can also just blow this up at some point.
Yes.
And if they deal damage to you, they lose a counter. It loses a counter.
Yes. All right. We found an achievement card, which I shall attempt. But I don't like the card.
No. This is a 1.
But I will still draft this card until I kill somebody with it.
I guess it's a 1/5 because it does ramp you. Like, this is a 3 mana colorless ramp spell, so I guess like a Quandrix deck could play it just for that, and then maybe tap it 7 times for land, get counters, and somehow kill them eventually. I don't know.
It doesn't get a counter when you use it for mana, though.
It does. You just can't. You just can't win the game by tapping that for the 10th one.
Oh yeah. Put a point counter on Strixhaven. Okay. That makes it way easier to trigger than I was thinking.
Yeah, although you've got to survive like 6 or 7 turns after you play this with this out.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's pretend you can hit them with an Inkling token from time to time.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, it's not a great card. It's a ramp card, but with I could see maybe even playing it in the Silver Quill decks with a bunch of little flying shooters.
Yeah.
With a splash color. No, it's colorless. Okay, maybe not. I take it back. Whenever equipped creature gets +1/+1, it has vigilance and trample. It's 1 to equip a token. That's kind of nice. 3 equip cost is kind of a lot, but vigilance and trample is also a lot. 2 keywords?
Yeah.
I hate this a lot less than I hate most equipments.
Yeah, I still don't like it very much, but if you're making enough tokens and every color combination can make tokens, it's probably fine.
Yeah, even without tokens, I still like vigilance and trample a ton.
Yeah, I guess it's the trample. You know, you're paying 3 to equip this to something probably big already. I guess it's, I don't know. Vigilance and trample are 2 of the lesser keywords for me. But it's fine, I guess. It's playable. It's only 1 to cast. But I still think it has this like a 2.
Yeah, I think I might be a little bit higher on it, but not by much. I'm leaning 2/5. But normally, I mean, I just think that they're equipments are typically just unplayable. And we've been seeing a lot better equipments lately, so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, put this on the 1/4 double striker. Give it trample and vigilance. So they have to block with an X4 and then it kills it. Great.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, you spent 8 mana, so I would hope you're getting something good.
Zephyr. Equipped creature has flying. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card.
I never play these cards, and they always kill me. They like just give something flying equipment.
Yeah, it's got that looter ability, which makes me want to play it though.
Agreed. It's definitely is better.
But yes, I used to run I ran the Zephyr enchantment a few times back in the day, like M14 or something, and that was kind of a nifty thing. But I think this is better than what we typically see. Got a low equip cost.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this is playable but not exciting.
I think this is a 3. I'm pretty excited to put this in basically any deck. Just because of the loot ability.
Yeah, I think I've still got it, like, maybe I guess I got it at 2/5. But I don't know. It runs into the same problem as every other equipment. It's, you need stuff to go with it, and unless it's really high impact, I don't play it.
All right, we're half point off. Seems reasonable. Moving on to the lands, guys. Add colorless. Target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. I actually kind of like it. If I'm just 2 colors, it's not a lot of downside.
Yeah, as long as your mana requirements aren't too stringent, it's probably pretty free to play 1 colorless land in straight 2 color decks.
Yeah, and if you get into any sort of board stall, you just win the game with this card. Great.
Yeah, this is fine.
Just even if you're just poking him with a pest, you're just like, suck it, take this little bastard, and then they die eventually.
Yeah, so I have that like a 2/5.
Yeah, I put it at like I put it at a 3 just because it's free. There's no downside, and I can see it's never gonna like lose you a game, but it can win you a game. So I'm fairly happy to have it in most of my decks.
Drawing a colorless land when you need color can definitely lose you games.
Yeah, but it won't happen very often. And again, if you have any sort of like double pips or the triple color, it's going to be much less. But I think the average deck is just kind of fine to play that.
Yeah, I think so. It does have downside risk.
Well, if it was only upside in winning games, it would be higher than a 3. When it enters the battlefield, tapped. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you pay 1, and it's a fixer. So we've seen this before. Comes into play. It's your turn 2 play, essentially. It takes both your land.
Yeah, Rupture Spire. We've seen this a few different times.
But this card is always fine for fixing purposes. It's actually worse in a 2-color deck, I think, typically. Because it doesn't just enter the battlefield tapped, you have to actually pay another land, which makes it way worse. Like in...
go
ahead.
I've never been a fan of this deck card unless I'm in at least colors.
Yeah, it's a 3-color card for sure.
So I just have it as like a 2.
Great.
Playable decks, not in others.
Agreed. 2 it is. All right, go ahead.
The Biblioplex. Tap for a colorless. Pay 2 and tap it. The top card of your library. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you may reveal it and put it to your hand. If you don't, you may put it into your graveyard. Activate only if you have exactly 0 or 7 cards. So this is kind of a throwback to Library of Alexandria. If anybody that plays older formats, or I guess really just Vintage, it's the only place it's legal, or Cube. But way worse. But it's another one that's probably free. Like kind of free-ish, like Access Tunnel.
Yeah. So it's basically a free... So yeah, so you pay 2, you basically surveil. You can choose to put it in the graveyard, you can choose to keep it on top, or you can draw it for free by exposing it if it's a spell, instant or sorcery, right?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
You only do it if you have 0 or 7 cards in your hand.
0 or 7.
Library of Alexandria was 7. That's the old card. This one has 0 as well.
Huh.
So I mean, it's great at the end of the game when you're
Top deck mode.
top decking.
Yeah, and then you just pitch your lands, get your creature, keep your creature on top or draw your spell, remove their thing, draw a card, do it over. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's like a free-ish card if you're in 2 colors with no heavy mana restrictions. Pretty happy to run it for the top deck wars, but it's literally only for top deck wars.
Yeah, or somehow you still have a full hand, like you have some card draw and stuff like that, but
with like the blue rare every time you cast a spell, draw a card kind of thing.
Yeah, but again, I mean, if you're got a full hand late in the game when you can pay 2, end this, so 3, plus then play a card,
you're probably winning anyway.
You're in pretty good shape anyway.
Agreed.
So yeah, it's like a 2/5 kind of like Access Tunnel. I think it's a little bit more powerful, but probably less consistent.
Agreed. All right, we got our rare land cycle. I actually thought the land cycle was uncommon.
There's a common and a rare one.
Oh, okay. Enters the battlefield, you may reveal an island or mountain card from your hand. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. These are a lot more restrictive than normal.
Yeah, this completes the cycle that they started in Shadows over Innistrad, where they had the allied ones, and this has the enemy ones.
I'm kind of reading these just as come into play tapped, because if you play them early, like turn 1, when you want to play your tapped lands, you don't care if it comes into play tapped, and if you're playing it later, you probably don't have the untapped land to play this anyway. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you probably don't, when you play this, you don't have the untapped land, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the difference is on like turn. It's more like it's got a chance to come into play untapped on like turn 3 or turn 4.
Yeah. If you just top decked this and you happen to still have lands in your hand, then it's better than a just tapped land. But I just meant like the downside of it is it's just a tapped land. Like we've been seeing in all of our sets.
Yeah. I mean, this is a print for Construct. They wanted to finish that cycle.
Yeah, and lands are always great if you're in the splash color or if you're fixing. But these are typically just 2s for me.
Yeah, I've got them a little higher. I'm at 2. I generally have the dual ends at 2/5, especially if there's a chance they can come in and tap. But again, you're not taking them over good cards. You're just taking over mediocre playables.
That's true. So like, yeah, the barely, so 2 unhappy, 3 happy to have in my deck. I guess I'm never really unhappy unless it's like the most Boros aggro ever. It's typically the only time I cut them. So yeah, I am closer to a 2/5, and I think that's actually what we rated the last set of tapped lands as well.
Yeah.
All right, so 2/5 for the rare cycle here. Halls of Oracles. Tap for colorless, pay 1 filter. For 2 mana, make a color of any color, basically. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, activate this as a sorcery. And only if you've cast an instant or sorcery this turn. Well, I don't hate this card at all.
No, it's fine. Filtering at a cost isn't great, but it's a nice ability to have, and it's you're obviously gonna want to play this in a spell heavy deck, but it's again kind of, you can play one of these colorless lands probably for free.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's free, if you just get like 1 trigger off of it, you're pretty happy. But again, make sure you're not having like mana intensive decks where you have 3 colors or have extra pips. And I think it's just like a free-ish card.
The good thing is this is a little bit better in those heavy color decks, just because you can, for a cost of 1 extra, fix it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of just like the other ones, like a 2/5.
All right, so here is the common cycle where it's both colors, but you can pay for Inscribe, but it has to come into play tapped. I actually kind of like these better than the rare cycle.
Words right out of my mouth. For limited, I like these better.
Yeah.
For constructed, I'll play the ones that can come into play tapped, because the curve, your early curve matters so much more. But yeah, I like these better in limited.
Yeah, I think that this is, I would much rather scry then have a chance for it to come into play untapped in an awkward situation where I didn't have it on turn 1, but I had it before I played all my lands. Weird situation. So yeah, I'm gonna give that one, we'll give it a 3 just so that way we make some sort of distinction.
Yep.
2/5.
That's all the lands. Everything else is cycle.
Prismari thingy is a cycle. 3. Quandrix Campus is a 3. And this is another one of the weird ones. Maybe comes into play untapped.
Yep.
Silver Quill Campus is a 3. And then I think we have one more of the, 2.5s.
And then one more 3.
Really?
Wither Bloom Campus.
I did not write that one on my nifty sheet. All right. We have one more thing to go over for this video, guys, and that is our modal cards. And then after that, we have one video left in the multicolors. I know modals are multicolors, but there is like 3x multicolors than there are in any particular color. So I decided to try to balance out the videos a little bit and put the modals over here just to, you know, even it out. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump in. We have the Wandering Archaic.
Yep.
An avatar. It's a 4/4. Wish I could make these a little bit bigger. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may pay 2. If they don't, you may copy that spell and choose new targets. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I like this card. Holy smokes.
Yeah. This card's great. 5 mana 4/4 is not completely unreasonable. And it's overcosted, but not completely unreasonable. And then yeah, everything they play that's a spell costs 2 more, or you get it as well.
Yeah, and they might just be in a pinch where they have to cast it as is. Their pump spells become sucky, their removal spells become sucky.
Yeah. No, this card's great.
All right, let's check out the other side. Tiny
Back
text.
Side. Yeah. Explore the vast lands, 3 mana sorcery. Each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library, reveals a land, end, or an instant or sorcery from among them, puts the cards they revealed into their hand, the rest on the bottom in a random order, and each player gains 3 life. This card is never seeing play on this side.
yeah, so we're literally only talking about this side.
Yeah, that's an EDH card on the back.
Great.
I think this card is really good.
I do. I think so too. It makes everything awkward. Like even if they just wait and tempo it out so you get no value, you're putting them on such like tempo disadvantage that that alone can win you the game.
Yeah.
It stops them from casting multiple spells. Like they can't cast like a cheap removal spell on a creature, right? They have to pick.
Yeah. I know it's still a 5 mana 4/4, so it's still a body that's not going to win the game. So I think it's like a 4.
I have it a 4 as well. I think
the
value. Go ahead.
I think if the backside did anything, I'd have it as a 4/5, but it doesn't.
I think its value goes up based on your opponent's deck, which is an interesting thing, right? Like if they're a smaller, low to the ground tempo deck with lots of like cheaper removal, then this thing becomes nuts. If they have a bunch of premium high-end black removal that they can now no longer cast, then this comes nuts. But if it's just like a very straightforward thing, there's spells that make inkling tokens. You get copies of that too. Like ramp spells, they have to now pay for. It slows down their ramp unless they want to ramp you too. Like, but again, it is more dependent upon their deck because if they've got no spells, then joke's on you. You have a very expensive 4/4 now. All right, next one. These might be flipped or something too, guys, because I wasn't sure which way I was writing them, but just a heads up. All right, a 5 mana sorcery. Choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy until end of turn. Except those creatures aren't legendary. Okay, so like you have like an army of tiny things and you want them to be slightly larger things.
Yeah, I mean this is blue-green, green on the other side, so it's kind of a Quandrix card. Pretty good with fractal tokens because they're all 0/0s with counters. So if you just copy like a 2/2, they all get become 2/2s with the counter.
Yeah, if you have fractals that are going wide as opposed to tall, most of the fractal tokens I saw generated were making more like large ones as opposed to like a bunch of little ones. But yeah, that's definitely a huge bonus anytime you have counters on things, that these abilities always become much better.
Yeah, but I think this side of this card is more, again, another kind of commander card, I think.
Great. And the other side is a 3/3 for 3 with trample. As long as you have 8 or more lands, it gets +5/+5. Holy Jiminy Christmas, that's a big troll.
Yeah, this is it's what Quandrix wants to be doing. Getting
Yeah,
lands out. This card's great. 3-mana 3/3 trample is good enough.
I agree.
Becomes an 8/8 trample that will win the game if it doesn't get killed. Yeah, I think this is probably a little worse than the last card. So I think it's a 3/3, 3/3/5.
Okay, yeah.
Could still be right in that 4 range.
Yeah, I put it in that 4 range only because it is to a T exactly what Quandrix wants. So like I just feel like you're more likely to get it, right? This isn't the kind of card where it's like, okay, eventually you'll hit 8 and you'll get a little bonus. It's literally like textbook. If you're looking for anything in Quandrix, it's this. So maybe I'll give it a little bonus, but that might be overcounting the synergy a bit.
The backside is not as useless as the last one, so it could come up.
That's true. Did I flip the sides on these? Hard to say. No. Oops. Okay.
And the flavor text is just great.
The flavor text?
Hold still.
Go ahead.
Hold still. I have a theory about what's going to happen to your face.
Aww. He's going to bear punch it. Blex, Vexing Pest. He's cute. Other pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders you control get +1/+1. When it dies, you gain 4 life. Okay, it's a 3/2 for 3, which is like fine stats as is. I don't know how many insects and snakes I saw, but there's definitely the eye thingy a bat?
I think it's a bat. I'm looking right now, just out of curiosity. Black and green, at least.
I feel like pests are going to be where it's at. The other things are more constructed oriented because there's like snakes and insect decks. So this is just like a lord for all of those things. Whether or not they're in this set, that's irrelevant. But this will pump your pests, which is really good. Gains you a little life, which is exactly what the Witherbloom deck wants to do. The other side, guys, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put any number of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Wait. You lose 3 life for each card put into your hand this way. Okay. I read that and I was like, I must have misread this somehow before finishing it. But I thought the catch would be like way worse.
Yeah, no, that's good on both sides.
Especially because like you want to be gaining a ton of life in those 2 colors anyway. So like, what's 6 life? What's 8? What's 9 life even? Right? Just because when your creatures die, they drain. When or they gain new life, and then your lords drain, and then yeah, it seems great. Pretty happy with this card.
Yeah, I think that side is more powerful than the front, unless you have a bunch of pests.
I agree with that.
But both sides are playable, and the backside's very good. Neither one of these sides, I think, is quite as powerful as the last 2 cards, so I've got this at a 3/5.
I agree. I think these ones are more synergy oriented, where it's like, so for instance, the troll, right? Even if you don't have that synergy we talked about, he will eventually turn into it, right? 8 mana is like not the end of the world. Whereas like this is if you don't have pests, he doesn't actually ever get any better. Versus, and the other side, right, where like, yeah, 9 mana or 9 life isn't that big of a deal in a life gain oriented deck, but if you don't have those things, you're realistically only going to be comfortable drawing a card or 2 off of this, which is not like a ton of value. That's more like divination oriented with a downside of losing life.
Yeah, and there is only eye twitch is the only other thing that triggers off of this, or that gets the bonus.
Did we check multicolor cards too?
Yep.
Great. So it's just eye twitch and pests. So yeah, it's got minimal synergy, and you have to have it in order to get the value. Versus the other 2, they're good regardless of whether or not you have it. So 3/5 for that last one.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Auric Overlord. Go ahead.
Extus Auric Overlord. 1 white, black, black for a legendary human warlock. It's a 2/4 double strike. Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, return target non-legendary creature from your graveyard to your hand. Seems pretty great. 4 mana, 2/4 double strike is just good on its own.
And every time you cast something, you get a
you get a creature.
What? Yeah. That seems insane.
That's just nuts.
That is super nuts. What's the other side do? Tell us.
That side, you have an 8 mana sorcery, 6 black red, Awaken the Blood Avatar. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. Spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, and you create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste. Whenever it attacks, it deals 3 to each opponent.
It makes a mini what's the stupid 2 mana escape card?
Croxa?
Right, yeah, it makes a mini Croxa. Interesting.
So the interesting thing about this, right, 8 mana is too much for this effect. But if you have some pests. Useless, spell pests or something to sacrifice, then it gets much better. It's also weird that this is black-red, which is not supported in this set.
Yes, but white-red is, so I think that, like, they match the color pairings with, like, the dual lands, right?
Yeah, I believe this is the only gold card in the entire set that is not directly tied to a school.
Okay. So none of them have a third color?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. See, I don't mind it because I was that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. It was like being in one school and splashing a second, which, the technically you're right. So, okay, so I was talking about how the white and the red go together from the front side to the back side, but you're right, that is splitting schools for the backside card, even though it works with the mana base splash colors. Interesting. I like the first side better.
Yeah, agreed.
Just because it sounds like so much value, but if you have the mana, the other side has more immediate impact, because hypothetically they could just kill it before you get to cast your spells or whatever.
Yeah, if you can cast the backside, unfortunately they get to sacrifice whatever they want, right? So chances are, by the time you get to 8 mana, they're going to have something out they don't care about. So a lot of times you're going to get basically an 8 mana 3/6. It's a good ability, but that's still pretty overpriced. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter because the front side of this card is just fantastic.
Yeah. I wonder, like, if I have a lot of mana and not, like, if I don't have a spell in my hand, I probably want to cast this for the backside. I think because they're sacrificing a creature and your creature's a 3/6, so they're probably they won't be able to block and trade it, so it's doing a lot of damage repeatedly. And if I don't have, like, a spell in my hand where I think I can get value off of this reasonably quickly before it gets removed, then I think the other side is more value up front.
Yeah, if you have the mana to cast it and nothing else to do, I think right.
Yeah. Now, if I have a cheap spell that I can either cast that turn, I'm 100% casting it. If I think I can cast one next turn, I'm still casting this. But if I'm, like, basically on top deck mode, then I think I like the other side better. Just because it guarantees you a little more substance up in the front.
Yeah, to me, I think
go ahead.
It depends on whether or not what they have to sacrifice. If they have to sacrifice, like, a pest or a 2/1 inkling, then the concern is they have a removal spell to kill Extus. But they could also, that removal spell probably kills the 3/6 too.
Yes.
So in which case, I might just wait and not play either if I can avoid it and wait till I draw a spell.
Yeah, if you can avoid it. Like, if they have a pest and you have nothing else, then you might not be able to.
Yeah.
And I would certainly rather kill a pest than play the other side in hopes that they don't remove it and then have it get eaten. Flame Scroll Celebrant. It's a 2/1 for 2. Whenever an opponent activates an ability that isn't a mana ability, it deals 1 damage to that player. Flame Scroll gets +2/+0 until end of turn for 2 mana. That's pretty cheap mana cost for 2/0.
Yeah, a very aggressive card. Probably, I mean, it dies to everything, unfortunately, but...
Well, it's kind of nice, right? You put it in an aggressive deck, you get in some chip damage with your early stuff, and then they always stabilize, but then this thing prevents them from using their stuff after that.
Yeah, no, it's a good card.
Depends how many activated abilities there are.
And the backside pretty much doesn't do anything.
Yes, it pretty much does nothing. I agree. Yeah, activated abilities that aren't mana. There just isn't that many typically, right?
No, I mean, any artifacts you have, there's a lot of triggered abilities in this set because of Magecraft, and those don't affect it.
Yeah. And even the artifacts are typically land stuff. Like the Sack Locket I was saying I liked. That's going to be a mana ability, right?
Wait, which one?
The Sack Locket.
No, that's not. The mana ability is something that produces mana.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It produces a mana of any color, doesn't it?
I was thinking about the sacrifice part. You couldn't do that.
Yeah, you couldn't, but you just wait until this gets dealt with.
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
It's not like a recurring thing that's going to ping them to death. I just don't draw a card.
Yeah. I mean, there's the lands, the abilities on the lands you can't use.
That's true. So lands.
There are creatures that just have them.
Like the unblockable snake, I guess, will ping them a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that taps to put a counter on everything.
So there's a few. So it's definitely not a bad card, but like I feel like it's too few for it to be a bomb.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is a bomb. I think it's a good card for an aggressive deck. It's like a 2/5 probably, maybe a 3.
Yeah, I think I put it at a 3 just because of the upside that, like I said, you do put them in an awkward situation if they want to try to do anything. I like anything with a little reach in an aggressive deck.
Yeah.
And honestly, its ability is so cheap that, like, if you are a low to the ground deck with some cheap removal, you might just be able to get it in for 6 and kill them. Like if you just happen to have like a shock and a whatever the lightning helix is or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. An Oracle. It's a 5/5 for a bajillion mana. Holy shit. Discard a card, return it to its owner's hand. So I guess you can stop them from removing it. With Magecraft, whenever you cast an sorcery spell, reveal the top of your library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it by paying 1 rather than paying its mana cost. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield. Great.
Expensive, but pretty fantastic if it resolves, and you can protect it by discarding, so.
Yeah. The other side is Journey to the Oracle, 2 mana. You may put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Then if you control 8 or more lands, you may discard a card. If you do, return Journey to the Oracle to its owner's hand. Constructed?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool that you can use this to ramp and then buy it back to cast the other side, but you have to have the lands in your hand, so.
Yeah. I feel like if you have that, like if you're casting this for 4 mana, like you probably don't have enough lands to justify. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you do, that means you haven't done anything else and you're probably just going to die.
And you probably just have a handful of lands and you're dead.
Yeah.
And you have to cast for, spend 4 mana, so it's not helping you cast the other side this turn. Yep. Yeah, it's just, this side's just constructed. This side is a very late game value engine, which I do like. But, I mean, you have to cast it for 8, and then you have to, like, have a spell. And then you might miss a turn or two. You might not hit. And even if you do, it might be something small. But it does give you cards over time, so I do like that.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you cast a spell, you effectively... Or actually better than that, because it either goes on the battlefield or you pay 1.
Yeah. So it stops you from drawing lands, puts your permanents into play if your top card's a permanent. So that basically counts as a draw. And if it's a land or if it's a spell, nothing happens, but then you get to redo it again next turn.
No, if it's a spell, you get to cast it. And then you get to do it again.
I thought you could only put it into battlefield as a permanent.
No, if it's a non-land, you can cast it for one.
Okay.
And then since you cast it, you'll trigger Magecraft again.
Yeah.
And keep going.
And then you just go until you hit a non-spell, and then it's either a creature or a land, and then it gets it off the top. Okay. I mean, I think it's great, but it needs to survive.
Yeah.
You have to have a spell to trigger it.
Yeah. I think, normal sets, I agree. I think this would be kind of rough, but this is what Quandrix wants to do. 8 mana is kind of the number for.
Yeah, I agree. What are we thinking rating wise?
I think I have this at a 3-5.
Okay. It sounded like you were going to be higher than me, but yeah, I have it at like a 3-5 or a 4.
Yeah, it's just too expensive. Now maybe we find out that really once we get through the multicolors that really not that hard for it to get to 8 land. All right, then then it's a little higher, but 8 is still a lot.
I was actually really impressed by the amount of ramp spells in green, and then also that the lesson that ramps you as well. The colorless one.
It doesn't ramp, right? It gets it into your hand.
Well, if you're so you're getting all of your lands every turn for that one, but then there was a bunch that put them into play as well.
Yeah, there was a lot in green.
Yeah, I like that card a fair amount, but only for the one side.
Yeah.
Dean of Substance. It's a 2/2 for 3. Exile a top card of your library. It's a land card. Put it into your hand. Otherwise, put a study counter on it. Create a 0/0 blue fractal creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each different mana value among non-land cards you own with exile counters on them. And you can't get those cards back?
Nope. Well, you can with the backside, but you're not going to have both of them.
Yeah. So you do it until you get to like 3 cards exiled, and then you poop out a 3/3 every turn.
Yep, but as long as they're 3 different mana values.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about like getting permanents off the top of my deck and then exiling them, but I mean it's making a dude, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's not great, but it's a fine card.
The Dean of Theory, a flying 3/3 for 4. Exile the top X cards of your library. Put a study counter on each of them, and then you may put a card you own in exile with a study counter onto your hand. Okay, so it's kind of constructed. The two sides go together, just like we just saw in the last cycle, right, with the gods.
Yeah, although I do believe that this backside here is great for it.
Yep.
4 mana 3/3 flyer is fine on its own, and then
you get to draw a card out of the top 4 cards if you cast it.
I mean, if you just pay
4.
one time pay say X = 3 or X = 4, you exile them, get one of them, and then you can get each of the other ones for 2 mana each turn. Pay X = 0.
Yep.
I mean, it's a late game mana sink, but that's gonna be true for a lot of Quandrix cards.
I think it'll be even if you're casting X for 2 each turn, you're just like hitting a permanent, getting rid of a land kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fine. Doesn't need to be a lot in order to get the value out of the X.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is really kind of the first one of these where both sides are. Well, no, I guess the black-green one was both sides are good, but I think both sides are fine. The bird is better than the druid.
Very different game plans. Like, I could see like decks with some synergy where you'd rather have the green side because you'd rather go a bit wider, and then like other situations where you'd rather have the Dean.
Yeah. I don't think either of these sides are bombs. But they're they both, like you said, have different game plans, so they're, versatile.
I think they're not, like, I agree, they're not instantly winning you the game by any means, but if left unattended or not removed, either side can can get you enough value over time to win the game, either by making enough dudes or by drawing you 3-4 cards.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have it in the 4 range.
I have it a little lower at 3-5, but not far off.
I like that the Dean of Substance is not, like, you don't have to pay to exile the top card. That's kind of nice. And then also the 5 mana ability is not a tap ability, so you can tap it, exile, then poop out a dude.
Yep.
So that works out very nicely together. All right, moving on. Mila, Crafty Companion. It is a 3 mana 2/3 fox. Whenever an opponent attacks one or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty, irrelevant. Whenever an opponent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability, opponent controls, you may draw a card. Oh, so it's like a battle behemoth. Trigger. I like that.
Yep. Yeah, 3 mana 2/3 that's gonna let you draw some cards. Seems pretty good.
Yeah, and the other side is a planeswalker, so you may, I'm gonna let you read it, it's pretty small.
4 red for a legendary planeswalker Luca, 5 loyalty. +1, you can discard a card if you do draw a card. If a creature card was discarded, draw 2 cards instead. -2, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of your next upkeep. -7, you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target.
Oh. And you only have to, in order to minus that, you only have to do 2 pluses.
Yep. And it's may discard, so if you have no cards in hand, you can still +1 and just not discard a card.
Wow. The wolf is good, but that planeswalker, holy shit.
Yeah, both sides are great. I think this card's just a 5. Mostly for the planeswalker side, but
yeah. The battle behemoth, like, anytime you target something, draw a card is really powerful, but I really like this planeswalker, so.
Yeah, the planeswalker doesn't protect itself very well. I mean, you can return a creature from your graveyard and have it sit back and block for a turn because it stays till being your next upkeep, but it doesn't remove anything, so it might not be a 5 on its own. But the fact that you can, if you can't get to 6 mana, you can play the fox for 3, and it's pretty good.
Yeah,
makes the card a 5.
Discard a card, create a 1/1 pest. Each opponent mills a card equal to the amount of life you've gained this turn. We found our mill card. Exile 4 cards from a single graveyard, draw a card. Oh, so you can even trigger theirs. Great. Don't do that against Lorehold.
Yeah, you need some help to make this card any good.
I mean, it does what it's a synergy card. It's exactly what Witherbloom wants to do. Whether or not your Witherbloom deck is good enough to do this is another question entirely, but I think this card can be great. Discard your land, make some poop dudes, which, even if you're just doing that and not caring about the other stuff like the milling cute things, being able to late game pitch a land and make a pest could synergize very well with the rest of your deck.
Yeah.
Whether or not you have those cards, we don't know yet. We'll see. Return up to 2 target creatures, 2 target creature, land, and or planeswalker cards from your graveyard to your hand. Each player gains 4 life. Okay, so most likely, a little bit of advantage for 5 mana. Probably not running these usually, but sometimes if it's 2 cards, if you've got high quality cards, then you can run it. But yeah, I think this card is fine, and it's going to be good in a highly synergistic deck. The average deck doesn't care about this card.
Yeah, I think the backside is, for me, better than the front, but they're pretty close. The fact that it also, even though it's just getting 2 cards back, it also does trigger your life gain stuff. For gaining 4 life is nice.
Yep. If you have any life gain stuff, but that's again where I was talking about the synergy part of it, where it's like if you have good cards in the archetype, then you are over the moon about this card. It feels like a split rating to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be fine playing this. Well, I mean, I'm playing this card. I'm playing it in black, so we probably have something. But yeah, this is not a card I'm going to take if I'm like black white and just play it for the black side.
Yeah. And even the green side, like, we tend to not care that much about return to permanence for 5 mana. It usually is too slow.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We saw a similar one for 4 mana, right? Wasn't it get 2 permanents out in Eldraine? Was it? I was like really excited about that card and ended up just not being that good.
Honestly, don't remember because I played almost no Eldraine.
Yeah, it was green and 3 colorless. It was like it wasn't Once Upon a Time. It was, I don't really remember, but I remember thinking it was going to be card advantage for green, and it just was too slow.
Yeah, I think I'm talking about. Once in Future.
Yep. What was it again? I know it got 2 cards, but what was it?
Well, it was return target card from your graveyard to your hand, put up to one other target card on top of your library, and then you
Okay.
did it for 2 if you cast it for 3 for adamant for at least 3 green mana.
Yes. So I was always thinking we'd be casting it for the animate is what I had in my head there. You just save it until you get there or whatever. But it's still, even when I was casting it for adamant, it just didn't feel quite strong enough. Too slow. That was, you know, a format thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this card's fine. I think it's, in there. I think it's like a 2/5 to a 3.
Okay, so we're very close. You made it sound like you liked it a lot more than I did.
No, I think some of the front side is like basically flavor text. I think the mill is completely irrelevant.
Achievement time.
Sure.
The Dean of Chaos. It's a 2/2 for 2. Discard a card, draw a card. For 5 mana, reveal the top card of your library until you reveal a non-legendary non-land card with value 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards at the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay? So you just get all the poopy cards out of your deck late game? Poopy's like strong. The low impact cards, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it's also shuffling your high impact cards down to the bottom if you reveal them.
Yeah, that's true. Although I didn't mind that too much, like, it's a bit different, but like, let's say in the Theros card where you like you play an enchantment, you look at the top 3, you get a land to put them at the bottom, right? But because it felt like you would go through your deck fast enough. Yeah. Shuffle effects obviously will change that, but yeah, 5 mana is a bit steeper than just play a card to get that, so that might not be the case here.
Yeah, I mean, 5 mana draw and cast a 3-drop or something is fine. And the rummage effect for free on the card is also good.
It's just a bear, so I mean, I think it's good.
Yeah.
How good though?
Yeah. See the backside.
Legendary 1/3. Other tapped creatures you control get +1/+0. Untapped creatures get booty. Whenever you attack, untap each creature you control, then tap any number of creatures you control. Great. That's interesting. So you can attack with them and then give them booty or attack power based on what you want.
Yeah, exactly. You get to manipulate your board state.
I like the other side better.
I do too.
For value, but this would be better. Like, I would run this in like the Inkling deck, right?
Yeah, it's a better card for black-white than red-white, which is interesting because it's a red-white, modal card. Yeah, I think both of these sides are good but not great. there's some flexibility there. They got it like maybe a 3.
Yeah. I think I'm a little higher on it. I don't think I want to cast. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3-5, I think.
Yep.
You can get a fair amount of value out of the Chaos God, and then I think with any amount of flyers, the Dean is pretty insane. Helps you win the race on the way back as well, just because you get that booty for your blockers.
Sure.
We got another Planeswalker. Why are the texts so much smaller?
Yeah.
Can't see it at all.
Rowan, Scholar of Sparks, 2 and a red for a 2 loyalty Planeswalker. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Okay.
+1 deals 1 damage to each opponent. If you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, deals 3 damage to each opponent. And -4, you get an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 2 if you do copy it. You choose the targets.
A pretty low way to get that emblem, and because you only have to plus it twice.
Yeah.
But overall, it's like slightly lower impact than we typically see in Planeswalkers.
It is, but I imagine that's because it's a double-sided Planeswalker.
You can cast it for the other side.
Will, Scholar of Frost, a 4 and a blue for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. Same static ability, instant and sorcery spells, cost 1 less to cast. +1 up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 0-2 until your next turn. -3, draw 2 cards. And -7, exile up to 5 target permanents. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller gets a 4/4 blue-red elemental. Yep, so backside is definitely more powerful.
Yes. Unless I want to cast the ultimate on the red side, if is really good in like a heavy removal deck, right?
Yeah.
Exiling 5 of your own lands and making 4/4s is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that you have the flexibility to have a 3-drop Planeswalker with a really good ultimate, or a 5-drop Planeswalker with probably better first 2 abilities, and just making all your spells cheaper at the same time.
Yeah.
Turning something into an 0-2 means Will can kind of protect itself.
Yeah, I do like that. That is nice that he can then not get beat to death.
Yeah.
I like the ultimate better on the red side, I think, in general.
Yeah, and it'll come up more because it's easier to get to.
Yeah. I just worry you won't have enough things to want to make into 5/5 or into 4/4s. You could use all your land.
Yeah, I mean, you could also hit their 7/7 or whatever.
Yeah, and it's unlikely that they'll survive that, but if for whatever reason, if they do, that would be awkward.
Yeah. This seems a little less powerful than our previous Planeswalkers, but I mean, it's still great. I think it's like a 4/5.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. 4/5 sounds right. What was before that? Oh yeah, it was the Dean of Chaos. Got it. The next card, Deadly Vanity. A bajillion mana. Got it. Choose target creature or planeswalker, then destroy all other creatures and planeswalkers. Okay, so it's... You get to keep 1 creature?
Yeah, Board Wrath that lets you keep your best thing.
And I also, looks like I saved these backwards, so that's the back side of it. And the front side of it is exile this creature. Creatures you control gain indestructible till end of turn.
So that's a powerful effect, but far less powerful when you can see it coming because it's on the board.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it does just like make it so your opponents can't block well.
Yeah, it does.
Because they're like, if I block well, then they just sack this and I lose. And so they're just like continued to like take damage that they, they can't trade. They've got to bounce.
Yeah, it's more like the side where this is not that good. right? You're attacking, but all right, they can't trade off everything, but all right, they trade one thing. Do you use it? No, okay, then they trade it. Next time they trade one more thing, and eventually, it just depends on the board state.
So I think it's the white side at least is going to be better in a more aggressive deck.
Agreed.
So it just forces them to misblock their creatures over and over again, / not block some of them because they don't have a block that will keep their creature alive. So you're getting in a little extra chip damage each turn.
Yeah, it's definitely better, which makes sense since it's black-white. So
yeah, I would think it would be better in the white-red though, only because the black-whites fly.
yeah, I just think black-white is more aggressive in the format.
Yeah, it is a tad bit counterintuitive there.
Yeah.
It fits the Boros typical ground theme.
Yeah.
And then 8 mana board clear. One like a
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing black-white, you're playing this card for the front side, and then the back side is just sometimes a bonus that will come up every once in a while and maybe win you a game. The backside is almost like on some planeswalkers, it's like the ultimate. It's like, yeah, it's there. You don't really consider it for grading the card because it's probably not going to happen very often. But when it does, it's probably going to win.
Yeah, black is going to be wrapping a ton. I think the card is okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this card's like a 3/5. It make things awkward on the front side, and then you just have that little bit of value on the back.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you happen to get to 8 mana, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
2 mana, 1/1 flying vigilance. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. It's kind of cute.
Yeah, good with things that make multiple tokens, or
yeah, or just putting a +1/+1 counter on every creature when it comes into play, plus getting a chip damage in when you don't have a creature. Seems fine.
Yep.
4 mana, 4/4. Put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature. It deals 2 damage to that creature. Whenever a creature you control dies with a +1/+1 counter, draw a card. Okay, so you can kill your own 1/1s to draw cards, or just make your bigger creatures bigger.
Yep.
And when the bigger creatures die, you get a draw anyway.
Yeah.
Great.
I think the front side of the card is decent. The back side is great.
Yeah.
And it's just a 4 mana 4/4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like this a fair amount. I even think that the backside's really good with Witherbloom if you're like putting the counter on their pests.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd much rather hit them with my 4/4, but if for whatever reason I can't, that seems pretty good.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think this card is like a 4/5.
Yeah, I had it closer to a 4 only because like you have to have other creatures and things.
Yeah, I mean you can kill their X1s too.
Oh yeah.
Or finish something off after combat.
Yeah, you can do 1 extra damage to it.
Yeah, so not a huge amount.
I actually kind of assumed that it was a target creature you control because those kinds of abilities typically are.
Yeah.
But you're right, that is not nothing, to be sure.
Yeah.
You can also, like, in combat, put a +1/+1 on your creature. Like if you have a 3/3, you make it difficult for them to block because you can just put a counter on it. It won't kill it. I mean, it'll then trade with their creature, but
yeah, I mean if you can attack a 3/3 into a 3/4.
Yeah.
Or a 4/4. Because then you pump it, trade, and you draw a card.
Yep. Yeah, I like it. 4 or 5 then. Torrent Sculptor, tiny text.
2 blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. It has Ward 2. And when this enters the battlefield, exile an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on Torrent Sculptor equal to half that card's mana value, rounded up. I mean, kind of unimpressed with that. it is a Prismari back, so a red back, so Prismari, so you do have like 8 drops, but
Yeah. Discard a card, then draw a card. When you discard an instant or sorcery card this way, it deals damage equal to that card's mana value to target creature or planeswalker. Okay, so you can discard like a spell that doesn't burn and turn it into a burn spell.
yeah, this is also a good way for Prismari to not get flooded with 6, 7, 8 drop spells. Use one of them to loot away and kill something. And if you don't, and if you don't have something you can use, make this a removal spell, you still have a 4-drop creature on the other side.
Yep.
I think this card's fine. Neither side is that exciting, though.
Yeah, I agree. They're getting a little bit more convoluted. Like, I feel like one side is good for one school and the other side's good for another school, kind of. Not for this one particularly, but just in general. Whereas I felt like even with the one color cards, like they were very, very clear which school they wanted to go to, especially in green.
Yep.
So we're getting a little bit more flexibility where it's like, this could be good in this deck, but it could also, be good in this other deck a little bit more. So it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
What are we thinking score-wise?
I think since both sides are relevant, the card's probably a 3. Like both sides are kind of mediocre, but I think together the flexibility makes it like a 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe slightly higher if you've got the synergy for it, like just higher costing spells.
Yeah, the fact that the same type of synergy helps both sides is nice.
I agree. All right, 2 for 3. A Djinn Wizard. You may exile instant or sorcery card from your hand and put 3 home counters on it. It gains at the beginning of your upkeep. If it was exiled, remove a counter from it. And when the last counter is removed from this card, it is exiled, you may cast it. It costs 4 less to cast.
It's like really bad suspend.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I guess that helps cast your 7 or 8 mana spells.
8 mana spells, yeah. But then you don't have the flexibility to cast them if you choose. But, I mean, presumably you're doing this like on turn 4 with your 8 mana spells where you wouldn't be able to cast them anyway?
Yeah.
All right.
It's an interesting.
If you're in the Prismati deck and you've got multiple 8-drop spells, sure. But I'm not liking that spell by much. Yeah. 4 for 5 at the beginning of your upkeep. Exile a top card of each opponent's library until end of turn. You may cast spells among those exiled cards, and you may spend mana as though they were any color. This side sounds better already. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on this. This side seems great.
Yeah, this side is just far and away better.
We're never casting the other side.
No.
Fuck that other side. This side's great. This side's like a 4/4/5. Only because it's a bit on the slow side, right? Like you play it, it doesn't give you any initial value, they remove it, GG's. Yeah. But like if it's undealt with, it will snowball into a ton of value.
Yeah, I think it's a 4 just because it's a little slow, but yeah, it has to be dealt with.
Yeah, that card seems great. All right, last modal card, guys. Lifelink Menace 1/1. It's a vampire warlock. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 1/1 black-green pest. Okay. So pay 2 to exile their card so they can't get any synergy with it, and you get a pest as a reward.
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't really do anything on its own.
I mean, the lifelink could be pretty relevant in Wither Bloom, right? Because there are lords that say each time you gain a life, do a thing, and this has Menace. So it's a little bit better with some upside with when you can't attack, you are then making pests, which will then, they will be sacked or chumped to do the same trigger, right? It has a lot of synergy.
Yeah, I just don't see it getting in very often, except for the first couple.
Yeah, but even then, when it's not getting in, it still just sits back and does a good job of what Wither Bloom wants to do, and that's make a bunch of pest tokens.
Yeah.
And control your opponent's graveyard. It's got some nice bonuses. 4 mana, 4/4, seeing a bunch of those lately. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. What in the Jiminy Christmas? This side's way better, though.
Never casting the other side of this card.
Well, so I was defending this side, but you already knew what the other side did, so you had too much knowledge and I had not enough. You might like this side better if you didn't know what the other side did already. You're a cheater. That's what you are. This card's great. I mean, you have to have life gain to trigger it. I guess if you have no life gain, this side's better because you get to make pests when your opponent's stuff dies.
I think I'd rather just have the 4 mana 4/4.
Yeah, it depends. Like, especially like if you have if the board is pretty uncluttered. I agree. I was thinking more like in the early game when you know you're going to be making trades. There's going to be some turns where you're going to have to sit back, but they can't really attack you because then you block, trade, make a dude. You get so much like residual value over the course of a long game. But yeah, this card is just more powerful like as is.
Yeah, agreed.
If you have no life gain, it's just like a 3. If you have it, it's insane.
Yeah. And I'm assuming if you're playing green, we saw a decent amount of life gain in mono green.
Yeah, even like the wasn't there like an enchantment artifact removal in the board that like was a lesson that also gained life when you cast it? So like there was just a lot of things that did its own thing, and then it's just like also have 2 free life, cast a 3/2, gain 2 life, and those are just like common, so they're pretty reasonable to find. So probably just a 4.
Yeah.
Great. That is the end of our modal cards and the end of this video. It's actually the longest video so far at 1 hour and 30 minutes. But these last 16 cards took us half the video to get through. Actually, more than half the video.
Yeah, 16 cards, but really 32.
Yeah, but the first colorless lands and artifacts took us like 25 minutes, and now we're 1 hour and 27 minutes in. So it took us 1 hour to do like 16 official cards. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. We have one more video after this one. It's the multicolor. And if you're watching this, it should already be up. So go check it out. Thanks, guys. Bye. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.